you have turned into the St. Lucie County Public School Speakers Bureau once again for some of you. And some of you, this is the first time that you have even heard of the Speakers Bureau. You might be just going through your channels and there you are, here we are. Let me explain to you just a little bit about what the goal is to this program. It is to inspire, encourage, and motivate our children and our community. It's important for all of us to be inspired and encouraged and motivated, to be the best that we can be so that we can be the best for our children. So at this time, we have a very special guest. I'm so excited about his coming on the program. It's Dr. David Washington. Dr. David Washington, thank you so much for being one of our guests.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, yes. And we're excited about your life, to hear about your life, your story. So why don't you start out with telling us what it was like for you, now before you go into that, what it was like for you as a child growing up. But for those of you that don't know Dr. David Washington, I kind of just went right into there like everybody knew him. But he is a retired principal of St. Lucie County Public Schools. So, Dr. Washington, tell us about your childhood and your teenage years.
Okay. So I was born and raised here in Fort Pierce by two wonderful, loving parents who believed in education. My mother worked at C.A. Moore Elementary School, so my entire childhood was surrounded by C.A. Moore Elementary School. So much so that my mother used to tell the story that she worked on December 16th and got home about 7 o'clock, and I was born at 8 o'clock.
Oh, my goodness.
So I actually am a product of C.A. Moore. So when someone mentions C.A. Moore to me, my entire childhood, we lived like 3 houses down from the school, so I played, the playground at the school was my playground, you know.
And you attended
and I went to school at C.A. Moore as well. I'm a graduate of Fort Pierce Central High School, the class of 1978. We probably were one of the largest graduating classes in the 70s from Fort Pierce Central High School. My middle school years were spent at Dan McCarty Middle School, which was an inspiration for me. Because we would pass Dan McCarty many times, my mother and I traveling through Fort Pierce, going to either Publix or Winn-Dixie on US 1. And I would always say, I want to go to school there. So I ended up going to school at Dan McCarty. And in my later life, ended up being the principal at Dan McCarty Middle School.
Yes, yes, okay. But now have you principaled other schools as well, or was just Dan McCarty?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I was the principal at several schools in Fort Pierce. My first role as the assistant principal was at Lincoln Park Academy with Dr. Elizabeth Lamberson. I spent a year at Lincoln Park. Then I moved to Village Green Elementary School with Mary Mosley as her administrative assistant at that time. And I spent 3 years with Miss Mosley at Village Green Elementary School. My first principalship was at F.K. Sweet. Mr. Felton Sales, the late Felton Sales, passed away. He had opened Southport Middle School, and Mr. Jim Thomas was the principal at F.K. Sweet. So my first role as principal was at F.K. Sweet Elementary School. And then from F.K. Sweet, I moved to Manatee Elementary School. Did 6 years at Manatee. From Manatee, Southern Oaks Middle School, did 5 years there.
I knew you had, oh my gosh, I didn't know you had traveled to that point, but I knew you had other schools.
And then Fort Pierce Magnet School of the Arts. I did about 7, 8 years at Fort Pierce Magnet School of the Arts. And from Fort Pierce Magnet School of the Arts, I moved to Dan McCarty.
Okay. So you started out as a teacher?
I did.
Okay.
Taught. My first teaching job was at Lakewood Park Elementary School under the leadership of Alan Edwards. I taught 3rd grade. That was fresh out of college back in 1981. I taught 3rd grade at Lakewood Park Elementary School. The next school year, they moved me to 6th grade. I taught 6th grade at Lakewood Park for 3 years. And then we opened Fairlawn Elementary School, the Magnet, with Louise Dill and Jerry McPherson. And I was there for 2 years.
Okay, so you've wow, and you've made history as in the area principal.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you share with us what that history is?
When I was appointed the administrative assistant at Village Green Elementary School, no, I'm sorry, when I was appointed the assistant principal at Lincoln Park Academy, I was only 24 years old.
So you're
So I
the
was the youngest.
principal ever
Yes,
in St. Lucie County
yes,
to get a principalship, the
Yes, ma'am.
youngest person.
yes, ma'am.
That is incredible. How did that happen?
Good raising, good parents.
Okay.
Loved education. I had no choice but education.
But how do you become a principal at age 24 from teacher to principal? I mean, how does that happen? What did you do at that time that someone saw you and said,
There were some great mentors in my life. When I taught school, when I was at Lakewood Park Elementary School, Alan Edwards, who was the principal at the time, and Wynels Granitz was the assistant principal. I was always at school early in the morning, always at school late in the afternoon. And it was evaluation. I'll tell you this story. It was evaluation time, and Mr. Edwards had called me in to do my final evaluation. It also was payday. And he had the checks on his desk, and somehow my eyes focused on his check. And so we were done with the evaluation. And I said to him, "Is that how much money you make each month?" And he was like, "Yeah, and you could make that too." So he really was the person who encouraged me to go back to school to start working on my master's degree.
Okay.
He would come to the classroom at the end of the day and ask me, "Okay, what were your challenges? What were the things that you thought you did very well? How do the kids relate to you?" And you got to realize I was awfully young. I was probably about 4 or 5 years older than the kids that were in that group of kids with me during the time. So we got along very well. What I later learned was that several of them were retainees. So it was their second year in 6th grade. And in comes this little young jittybug from Bethune-Cookman who had the latest style, knew the latest lingo, and brought education to life to them. While a student at Bethune-Cookman, I was in the theatrical program as well. So a lot of what we learned in the theatrical program transferred to my classroom with the kids. So we would dress the part, play the part. We'd make our own costumes in the classroom. We'd make songs to math equations and those kinds of things. So the learning in the classroom for those kids, for those group of kids, was not what they had had in prior years. It's one of those things. I would say that my success was because there were some great mentors in my life.
That's great to know. And again, we talk about it all the time, the tremendous difference that we as adults make in other people's
Yes, ma'am.
lives,
Yes, ma'am.
especially in the children's
Yes, ma'am.
lives. And what I'm hearing is that you brought life into the classroom.
Yes, ma'am.
And so children enjoy learning if they have an instructor that's making it enjoyable.
You have to talk to your kids and they have to know that you trust them. Not only that you trust them, but that you care for them. And in that care, you got to love them some. They got to know, they have to know that there are boundaries. I'm sure
Yes.
there were some discipline situations going on in the classroom.
Yes.
But on Fridays, here's a perfect example. On Fridays were spelling test days. And all the kids that did very well on the spelling test got to go get 2 cookies out of the cookie jar. You know, just simple
Yes.
stuff like that. And the kid that was having a difficult time with the spelling words, you paired them with a kid who mastered it, and they became friends. So you begin to see the grades improve as well.
Great. I'm listening to you, and I'm seeing the wisdom of everything of what you did to really encourage the children and to bring life into the classroom. But you did say they need to. What I got out of what you're saying is kids need to feel safe.
Yes, ma'am.
they need to feel like you care.
Yes, ma'am.
Like I'm with the person who really cares about me as a person.
Right.
And I'm safe. I'm thinking of one of my grandsons when he was just a little thing, like 4 years old, 3 maybe, and how he started in my program, must have been 3, in my preschool, and he would always want to be up under me. And so we slowly, got him where he was able to go outside with one of the teachers. And his thing, the first thing he asked her, he looked up at her, and he's real sharp now. He's in the 6th grade this year. I mean, he made the 5 on his math, and he's just really smart, and his reading's very high. And so he looked at her and he said, "Do you like me?" And we knew that at that time he wanted to feel like he was safe with that person.
Right.
She said, "Of course, I love you," and gave him a big old hug. And he went right on outside, and from that point on, started going outside. So, yeah, our children need someone, as you said, that's right there for them. They
Correct.
feel, yeah. So, we talked a little bit about your childhood. I want to hear a little bit more about that.
When I was in 3rd grade.
I mean, were you a perfect child?
No.
Everything was perfect?
No, absolutely not. When I was in 3rd grade at C.A. Moore, we had a young lady who came to C.A. Moore by the name of Eula Mason. She was a graduate, and I'm not sure, I think it was Alabama A&M at the time, and she moved to Fort Pierce and was a first-year teaching school, and I was a student in her classroom. And that's where I learned relationship building, because just like you talked to me about your grandson, though people think that I am an outgoing kind of a person, I'm really an introvert. Give me a book and a pillow and a blanket, and I'm fine all by myself. But Miss Mason was our 3rd grade teacher, and she came in, again, fresh out of college with all of this knowledge that she had learned, and she got a group of us that were probably all introverts in the classroom. She completely turned us around. She brought in all of these fantastic books that we had never ever seen before. And I can visibly see right now that classroom where she had over in the corner a bean bag with books in a basket. So when you finished your work, you could go to that corner and read. So a lot of the things that I incorporated in my teaching style actually comes from that 3rd grade year with Eula Mason.
Wow. So I can fairly say that she was your favorite hero.
She is my
favorite teacher.
She is my hero to this day. Many times, she lives in West Palm Beach now. She's no longer a teacher here in St. Lucie. But many times when I'm on a speaker's guild or doing some kind of public speaking, I tell people that story on how she took this little black boy and turned his life completely around through books. And many times people see her and tell her, David Washington just said that you are the inspiration behind
she was a
him.
white teacher?
No, she was a black lady.
Okay, because you said this little black boy. I thought you maybe, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, the difference she made.
Yeah.
So, a little fun questions here. What is your favorite music?
I love gospel music. I am going to tell you that if somebody wanted to do something for me, anything by Kirk Franklin he's my ultimate. He's my go-to.
Okay.
But I love gospel music. In general, I love music. I told you that when I was away in college, I was in the theatrical program.
Yes.
So any kind of music, you know, you can give me from Bach to rock, and I could relate to it.
Okay, great. Yeah. What about books? Do you have a favorite book or two?
I love books. As a matter of fact, I have a whole room full of books. I call it my library. But my go-to book has always been from my grandmother. She would always tell me, make sure you got a Bible somewhere. So the Bible is one of the most important books to me. But one of the books that helped me with my leadership skills is The 1 Minute Manager. So no matter where I go, I take the 1 Minute Manager. As a matter of fact, when I moved to the tax collector's office, my first couple of months there is all we did was the 1 Minute Manager.
Tell us about your work now. You've retired as a principal.
Yes, ma'am.
But you went back into the work field? And you're young to be retirement. I mean, that's been a few years ago as
Yes,
a
ma'am.
principal.
So actually, when I left St. Lucie Public Schools, I was sick, and the opportunity for me to recuperate from my illness took about 3 years. So for about 3 years, I was isolated at home, didn't do much of anything other than begin to feel better. And after I got myself back together again, I started subbing in the school district. So I was subbing at Fort Pierce Magnet School of the Arts. I did a lot of work at C.A. Moore subbing. So I would pick and choose when I wanted to go subbing.
Yeah.
Lisa Sullivan called me one day and asked me to come to Dan McCarty and have lunch with her. So I went and had lunch with her. And she presented an opportunity to me. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I could do this every day, but I'll try it. So I ended up subbing back at Dan McCarty, and I finished out the school year with Lisa Sullivan at Dan McCarty Middle School, teaching 6th grade world history, which is also one of my favorite.
Okay.
Anything history is something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So the kids and I had a great year. Again, very creative in the classroom. They knew what the discipline plan was. I didn't have to chastise anybody. They knew. Many of the teachers on the wing would come and go, how do you get them to behave? I was like, I don't. They do it. Again, a big pack of 60 cookies, some fruit punch from Publix, finish your work, make an A on the test, get a B on the test, here you go. You go do it yourself. I'm not doing it, you do it.
That's why I do not understand people who feel as if children should not be rewarded for their good actions. Because I've had it come to me and say, well, they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do. And they're children. If we adults want to be awarded,
well, you
and
get a paycheck.
rewarded.
You get a paycheck every other Friday. So that's your reward.
You get something, and promotions and all of that. Why wouldn't our children respond to the same thing?
Yeah. Well, that year at Dan McCarty with Lisa Sullivan, she really gave me the autonomy to help that group of kids that were struggling. I'm just going to be honest with you, Dr. Mills. Their parents were working and doing the best that they could for the kid. Many times when they left school, they had to go home and take care of younger brothers and sisters.
Yes.
They had all this tons of, we had to get the dinner done because mama don't get off until 9 o'clock. So they had tons and tons of responsibilities outside of the school day. So we made time in the school day to get homework done. You know, you're done with your stuff here, you go over to a corner in the classroom, pull out whatever that math is that you need to get done. As I make my way around, if you got a question, raise your hand. I can help you with that. So again, kids perform for you when they know you care for them.
Yes.
No matter what the situation is.
Yes. And you know how to speak life into them.
Right.
You care, and they kids, and I know you know this because you've been an educator for many years. They need to have boundaries.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, you can be a wonderful teacher, but if you don't put your foot down in certain areas, they'll just run over the wonderful, the fun, loving teacher, and you can't even teach them this. So you have to have that balance, right?
Well, I think to share a quick story with you, when the year I was at Dan McCarty, the bell would ring, and the kids were so accustomed to just jumping up, leaving. And I was like, okay, you heard the bell. That's not what dismissed you. I'm the teacher. I dismiss you. Come back and have a seat. So I started this thing that when the bell would ring, you could have your stuff together getting ready to go, but you don't just get up and leave.
Jump up and go,
You know, I have to dismiss you. So I even had my kids make a line outside the door when the bell would ring before they would come in, so I could be at the door and greet each one as they came through the door.
Okay.
And that was important. It was like, and my colleagues would go, how you get them to line up like that? Because of that personal greeting. They wanted me to be able to say, good morning, Robert, how are you? come on in, we're going to have a good day. They wanted that individual greeting. So they lined up and stood right there in the hallway until I let them all in the door, one at a time.
So now we're going back to the what you do now.
Okay.
Was that Lisa Sullivan? No, that was Lisa Sullivan when you went to work
At Dan
with her.
McCarty.
But what are you doing now?
I actually-
and why?
Okay.
Because it seems totally different from what you did.
I actually am the chief deputy for Chris Kraft, who is St. Lucie County's tax collector. And in my new role as the chief deputy, I am responsible for the day-to-day operations of the entire organizations.
Okay.
So in essence, when Mr. Kraft is not in the building, Dr. Washington is in the building.
Okay.
So all the major decisions that have to happen during the day come through my office. The hiring and the firing of anyone comes through my office. There are 6 directors in our organization that all report directly to me. The director of communications, the director of finance, our HR director, which we've now called our TD director, which is talent development, because we're developing talent in our employees. They all report directly to me. So if they're having situations in their offices during the day, they normally call me and say, okay, Doc, this is what's going on. This is how I handled it. You want me to add anything or take away anything?
Seems like night and day.
It's night and day.
Of the work that you
It
did
is.
all these years.
It is. Totally night and day.
But it's good to be open to other things.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what makes the difference in life, you know. Do you have a hero?
My mother is my hero and will always be my hero. When you see David Washington, you see Willie Mae Washington. For her kindness, her generosity to kids, her ability to pray. So I would always tell people that my mother is my hero.
I have one more question for you, and that is, if you were president today, what is the first thing you would do, Dr. Washington?
If I were the president of the United States of America, is that the question?
That's the question.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think would be important for the president of the United States is to have the ability or to have a cabinet, an entourage of people around them that have not only their eye, their ear, and their presence involved in all things in life. Education. Financially, right now, everyone is going through a horrible time. You know, when we look at gas prices and how the economy has spiked rents and food, the grocery store.
Everything is
those members of the cabinet that would be around me as the president would be able to go into a Publix and say, you know what? Last week I paid $5 for a chicken. This week I'm paying $9 for a chicken. Okay, so let's talk about this. You know, what's the strategy? What's the strategic plan on getting prices down? I also think if I were the president, my ticket would be something with education, because the kids are our future.
They are our future, yes they are.
So I would spend a whole bunch of my time and my effort to ensure that there was quality education for boys and girls in America.
I can't tell you how many guest speakers have come on here and just say to us how important their teacher was, and how it helped to save their lives. For so many of them, that teacher that was able to really, like you were saying, be able to connect with them and then turn their life around through connection, through love, through positive reinforcement. I cannot tell you how many people talk about their teachers in that classroom. And they're adults now, and they go back to that. So, Dr. Washington, I cannot thank you enough for coming on this program.
It's my pleasure.
For sharing just a little bit of your life. I like to know more about what it was for you as a kid, but we're gonna have to have you back for that.
All right.
And I'm just so appreciative for all that you have done in this district and your great accomplishments. And I personally hope one day they name a school after David Washington. Yes, sir, I do. I do. So I've said it. It's out there. Because we need to remember those people that have made the most impact, and you're one of them. So again, thank you for coming to the Speakers Bureau. You know, you're doing a full-time job again. So I know your busy schedule.
Yes, ma'am.
And we appreciate you. And as I said before we started, you're getting young every time I see you. Not getting older, you're getting younger. I think it's that good care that you've been taking care of
Yes, ma'am.
yourself
Yes,
as a
ma'am.
result of getting sick.
Yes, ma'am.
You were able to kind of refocus life
Yes,
and
ma'am.
take better care of yourself. Thank you,
You're
Dr.
more than welcome.
Washington.
Thank
and
you.
hopefully you'll come back again one day.
Keep doing the job that you're doing.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate it.
congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Congratulations. I just got back on the school board. No, I never got off, but just finished the campaign and won that campaign. And I thank you also, all of you out there, for your vote and your confidence in me. And we'll continue to do just that.
Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Dr.
You're
Washington.
welcome.